Hi guys, and you join me for a very special video today. This is going to be the last video before Train Sim World 2 releases. So this is going to be the last ever Train Sim World 1 video for this channel. Not to worry, we'll be doing plenty of Train Sim World 2. And if we ever have to come back to Train Sim World 1 to do anything that hasn't come to Train Sim World 2, we will do, so not to worry. But today I bring you a very special video, and as you know, Tees Valley Line is my favourite route. So I've got no less than four locomotives, and well, 3 locomotives and 1 unit. So I've got a Class 20, a Class 08, a Class 37 and a Class 101, and we're going to do cold start procedures on them with the British Rail train crew manuals. So we're starting off with a Class 20. So it's the Class 20 locomotive driver static duties manual. So we're going to proceed to get it ready. So the first thing we're going to do is, because we have to choose the category of the locomotive. So this is a Class 20 locomotive fitted with dual braking. So I've got the required section of the manual. So first we're going to commence with an external examination. Evidently there are not any not to be moved flags or red or any kind of signage indicating that the locomotive should remain stationary. So okay, next thing that we've got to do is check that all the air hoses are in the closed position, which they are. And now we've got to proceed to check that all the jumper cables are as should be, and vacuum is on the vacuum pipe is, oops, that was a bit of a fail. The vacuum pipe is on its mount, and there's no capes or pipes attached. Cables, sorry. And then we've got to check that there's sufficient sound in the sandboxes, which we can't, but we're just going to see there is, of course. Yeah, okay. You've got to check that these areas of glass are not broken, so it's not, and that there's enough fuel in the fuel levels. Okay, next. Make our way around to the other side of the locomotive, check that all the pipes are in the same position, which of course they are, and all the air cocks are closed. And we're going to proceed to check that this emergency fire extinguisher has also got its glass sealed. And then we're going to proceed to a bit of actual opening cabinets. Right, so first thing we're going to do is unlock the battery panel door and open it. Right, then we're going to set the lighting isolation switch from isolated or external supply, which would mean that we're connecting the locomotive to the grid in the depot. So it would be Bay 14 grid. We have to set it to the battery, so it's set to normal, therefore it's now taking power from the locomotive, and unisolate the battery. We can now close this cabinet and lock it. Oops. There we go, it's now locked. So we can now proceed into the locomotive. So the first thing we've got to check in the locomotive, let me just skip to the next page on the manual, is that, let's see. So the first thing we're going to do in the cab is test the fire extinguisher bell. Well, we're going to turn our light on so that we know what we're actually doing. Okay, so we're going to turn our fire extinguisher, we're going to turn on the bell test to see that it's working. Indeed it is. Is that there? See if I can get a kind of interesting, I think you can kind of see it. You can kind of see the stick. Maybe not. Never mind. Okay, so then we've got to check that the fire extinguisher is sealed, which of course it is, and then we've got to set the control cutout switch to normal. Then we've got to open the fuse cabinet door, and insert the control fuse. There we go. And now we must start the engine. So the first thing we're going to do is close up. We're going to insert the master key. Let me sit down. Turn on my instrument lights on. Turn on my master key. Insert it. Inserted. Reverse it to engine only. And start the locomotive. There we go. The diesel engine has now been started. You can hear the vibrations coming through as it throttles up. You can also hear the whistle. There we go. Okay, so we'll just let that build up now and rev up. Next, we've got to check that all the brake valves are in shutdown and neutral, and that the straight brake is off on both desks, which indeed it is. Detonator case and tracks operating clips. So this is the detonator, which is sealed, and the track circuit operating clips are in their position, which of course they are, so that's good. And the fire extinguisher is sealed, which we already checked it before, and it was. Okay, this locomotive, the manual I'm reading is from 1988, and this 20 is from 1989, and there's a small variation, which is that on this particular locomotive, when the AWS isolation is turned off together with the cab changeover, so any of those two levers, when it's turned off, will disable the DSD, so the driver safety device pedal. So when you lift your feet off the pedal, it won't cut the amps or apply the brakes. So this manual only tells us to turn on the cab changeover after we've completed the brake tests, but we're going to have to do it else differently. Oops, a bit loud. There we go. AWS cancelled. So next thing we're going to do is check that the brake selector switch is on air passenger, which it is. The exhauster switch is on in here, which it's not. So put that up. That the cooker is off, which indeed it is, the hot plate. And then let's verify that we've got a pressure of 95 psi. Oops. On what happened? A 95 psi on the. So that's 80. That's okay. Yeah, we've got pressure of 95 psi in the main reservoir. So right. So we're gonna move our automatic brake to running. There we go. Automatic brake is now running. And the brake pipe has now registered a pressure of 72.5 psi, which indeed it has. So now we're going to proceed to move the brake valve to initial and check that we've got. Oh, wait a minute. Okay, we've got to check that we've got a pressure of 66.5 approximately in the brake pipe. Wrong brake. And the brake. I've got to get down to be able to see it better. Yep, we've got a lesser brake pressure, and then we've got to move it in steps to full service. There we go. And check that the brake pressure falls to about 46.5 to 50.5, which is about 50, so we're fine. And the brake cylinder pressure has maxed out, which indeed it has. Now we've got to move the automatic brake to emergency, checking that the brake pipe pressure falls immediately to 0 and that the brake cylinder pressure remains at its maximum. There we go. It indeed has. Next, we've got to put it to running and check that all the brake cylinder pressure goes away and that we've gotten the nominal pressure of 72.5 on the brake pipe, which we do, and the brakes are now releasing. Let's just verify they've released completely. in which indeed they have. Now we've got to check the straight brake, so verify it goes to maximum and that it releases when it gets released. Let's see, let's just check that. Indeed it does. Okay, now we've got to test that when moving the reverser to forwards or reverse, after about 5 to 7 seconds we get a full brake application and brake cylinder application, and evidently the amperage would cut out, so that therefore testing the DSD. Let's put it in forwards, and any moment now we should get the pressure drop together with the brake cylinder pressure rise. There we go. Indeed it has, all the way down, and the pressure's gone right down to what would be an emergency application if we would leave it long enough. Indeed. Yep, so we're going to put it back in neutral and let the pressure rise again. There we go. And now we've got to set the automatic brake to emergency, pausing a minute and then neutral. So there we go. Pausing a moment and then neutral. Okay, that's sorted. Right. Now we've got to turn off. We've got to turn on the vacuum brakes, so vacuum brake passenger, and set the automatic brake to running, checking that we've now got vacuum built up completely when set to running. So indeed, the vacuum has now built up completely when set to running, so we can now initiate the vacuum brake tests. So when we move it to, for initial, it should move to about approximately 15 pounds per inch, which indeed it has. And then in steps to full service, and the vacuum should destroy almost completely. Indeed, and then set it to emergency, checking that the brake cylinder pressure goes to maximum and that the brake pipe pressure goes to 0 and the vacuum destroys completely, which indeed it has all happened. Now we move it back to running. The vacuum will now hopefully build up again. Indeed it has. And now we've got to do another straight brake test once the brakes have released, so just give us a moment. I'm just going to sit down to do it. So on the straight brake, maximum, it applies the brakes to the maximum, and released, it releases them completely, possibly, presumably. Indeed it has. And do the same test with DSD, so I'm just going to take my feet off, set the reverser to reverse this time, and the vacuum should fall together with the brake pipe pressure, and the brake cylinder pressure should rise. So as you can see, all the 3 things that I said that had to take place have now taken place, so it works. So put it back to neutral, depress the pedal, there we go. Okay, apply the straight brake. We're on the straight brake. Apply and release the parking brake. Done. And now we've got to put the brakes to emergency, pausing, and then shut down. Change this back to air brake passenger, set the automatic brake all the way back to running again, whilst let me just set up my lights. So let me sit down here, turn on my tail lights, and sit down here and turn on my headlights. Okay, and now we've turned off our handbrake, so we've got to release the vacuum pressure So I'm just gonna check the dial whilst I open up the chamber release valve. Wait a minute for it to completely release. Yep, there we go. Sit down again. The vacuum has now fully released. And now we can proceed to move the locomotive, I think. Yep, so we're sorted. So now we can proceed to set the reverser to forwards, release the brake, make a two-tone sounding of the horn, remove the cab light, and we give it power. I'm just gonna sit like this so that I can actually see where I'm going. And now with the map, I'm gonna set my points to exit the yard, which is set correctly. So just give us a bit of power. Any horn blowing must be done on the main line, must be done using the two-tone functionality of it. I'm also gonna open my window a bit so you can hear the locomotive. There you go. And shut down the power. We're coming round the bend. Just in case you want to look at the locomotive, we're driving it in reverse basically. But from the lead reverse cab, which is the engine room cab as it's called. And now we're going to have to do a cab changeover, for which I'm also popping out a manual. So it's non-loco specific, class 20, 1988. I'm preparing to stop, so let's just turn in here. There we go. Just stop after the junction. Getting back to our normal way of sitting down, applying the brakes. Set them to turn on the cab light, close my window, turn off my lights and turn on the other lights. Right, so now we're going to have a look at how to change ends. So it's going to be page 6. Okay, changing ends. So the first thing we do is the first thing we're going to do is turn off the reverser or master switch. Extract the master key, which is, if I can click it, nope, doesn't want to be clicked. I'll just get up. Master key. Of course, not on the class 20, because on the, okay, so just turn off the master switch, turn off the lights, move the brake valve to neutral. There we go, release the straight brake. Now we're going to turn off this cab light and go to this end, turn the light on here and do our lighting. Okay, so we're now sorted. So now we can reverse it to neutral, release the set the straight brake, we're rolling, and release the train brake. And while it charges, I'm going to do a visual confirmation that the lights are set correctly, which indeed they are. Now we're driving the locomotive forwards. Opening my window, turning off the cab light. Now we're going to proceed to move the locomotive over to the refueling rack, which is further down. There we go, just changing the points up. So we go down here, and well, I'll see ya once we've got, well, I won't see ya. Sorry, didn't mean to say that. Right. Blast our horn. Get moving a bit. And we're going. Throttle down the power. as we come into this bend. By the way, expect plenty of live streams once TSW2 is out. Just mentioning it. So I'm now proceeding to move the locomotive outside. There we go. Nice horn. Gives a bit of power. Oops, we've got a bit of a bug. There we go. It's just a bit of a sound bug. And check that the points are set correctly for where we want to go. Which is just the refueling rack over here. Get the power down. Come on this diamond. Turn off the power. Turn on the diamond. Pass the hut. Shunter's hut. Close the window. And slow down the locomotive for stationing. Okay, so now we're gonna go and I'm gonna push a bit further forwards for the moment. And I forgot to look at how to station the locomotive for short periods of time. So we're going to turn on our lights, reverse and neutral. Right, so we're going to station the locomotive permanently. Right, preparation, none of this. We don't want any of this. External, none of this. We want shut down the... not taking over. Okay, here. Disposal. Okay. So we're going to dispose the locomotive. So we're going to set the brake valve to emergency, remove the straight brake, and then set it to shut down once we can. Right, and then we're going to turn the master switch, so basically a reverser, off and remove the key. Turn off the AWS cab changeover. What else? Turn off the diesel engine. There we go. Okay. And I think stop the engine and okay. Turn off the battery. And turn on the parking brake. Right, I'm off to do the parking brake. No, I've done the parking brake, and I'm off to do the battery, which is here. I'm just going to isolate it. There we go. So I will definitely now see you once we've got to the Class 08. See you in a minute.